I'm Martin and welcome to another great edition for Astronomy for Beginners. And today, and welcome to part 3 on this great series on super tuning your EQ5 mount. And as you can see, if you've not followed the recent series of videos, the videos at the top, parts 1 and parts 2 are at the top. If you want to, if you missed those parts, please check out those videos at the top so you won't miss out all the valuable information. So in this video, if you've not seen my videos, check out the links at the top, right, directly to the EQ5 tuning. Now again, if you like my videos, please hit the like button and also please subscribe onto my channel. Activate the notifications by hitting the bell so that you don't miss out any of these parts and you get notified when the next part comes available soon. Again, we're also available for Facebook group. Please join that Astronomy for Beginners Facebook group. We're available on there, so check out there. All the parts and the special tools required and the links are at the description below to order these parts for your EQ5 mount. So please check them out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to crack on with the work. We'll go through part 3 and let's do this. So what we've got here is we've got the main mount itself. First off, clean up the areas where there's grease, okay, from here all the way around the main bearing housing. Alright, so it's nice and clean. Then using some very fine emery cloth, I mean this is 2000 grit, okay, just carefully just clean up this surface, okay, only a little bit. You'll need to put just clean up the surface nice and clean. Alright, clean it up so yeah, this part is nice and clean, but don't take too much off. Alright, once you've sanded it down, just get a bit of rag and just degrease this area. Now with this as well, with this area being cleaned up, I've also taken off this part from the deck side. Again, this is taken off with a 5mm Allen key, alright, and it's 2 bolts that just gets removed from there. So as you can see there, that's attached to the main RA shaft, with these bolts. And all I've done is, it makes it a little bit easier to gain access to clean certain areas that are difficult to reach. Again, same detail, clean up the surface areas around there, the mated surface areas, degrease them, bit of very fine emery cloth, alright, 2000 grit's usually quite good, alright, just to clean up the surfaces, make sure they're nice and clean. You can use a bit of metal polish as well. Polish will help to give that nice deep shine on these races. So again, same on here and same on this side here. So make sure all these surfaces are nice and clean. But again, remember, do not take too much material. Just enough. If there is imperfections and if they're deep indentations or something like that, then please do not try and take too much material. Just quickly just sand it down a little bit, alright, nice and even, like so. Once you're done, then a bit of metal polish, and that's all you need to do. If you get any marks and something like that, deep marks in there, leave it well alone, okay. It's just the way it is on certain mounts, so just enough so it's nice and clean. Alright, that's all you need to achieve here. So after we clean this area, what we're going to do is apply a bit of type 2 grease along this new bearing, okay. So the main bearing itself, we'll just put a smear of grease all the way around, alright, around the race. This is already packed, and then we're going to put just a smidgen of grease all the way around the inner race, like so. Okay, just so all it's going to do is help it, so when we push it in there, like so. So we place the bearing, okay, in between there. Now it won't go in fully in. You'll have to gently tap that bearing inside that race, nice and easy. Remember the tip before, use the old bearing, okay, to protect the new bearing, and you just gently tap it in like so. What you're trying to do, once this is tapped in, you need to check the bearing, alright? Check the bearing itself, and it needs to go fully home inside. As you can see, I've got the bearing nice and flush, alright, and if you can take a look at here, and as you can just see there, alright, the bearing's now homed all the way down to the lip. Okay, so that is the bearing pressed in. Now again, that method that I just showed you is fine. However, if you got something like this, bearing press tools like this, I strongly advise to use this equipment if you have it. Okay, the other method I show you is fine, but this is much better. If you have bearing press kits or bushers like this, alright, you can press these in very easily without damaging the bearing. So if you do have bearing press kits like this, for example, please use that. We're going to place the main mount body. Okay, before we place it on the tripod, we're just going to coat this area with a bit of grease around this side here with green grease. Now you don't have to do this, but I find that sometimes a little bit of grease helps to move the mount head easily. So when you place it into the tripod bracket, grease like that will help move the mount a lot more easily. Alright, you don't have to do it, but I think it helps that way. As you can see there, I've just greased up a little bit of grease inside there, alright, and some on the bolt, some on the jacking bolt where the screw is going to go. Alright, and this is going to fit over nice and easy. As you can see, it slides very easy now. So we lock this mount in place. So now you can see you can move this left and right a lot easier. You can see here we've got the RA axis gear ring, alright, aluminium gear ring. This one's not too bad, there's not many burrs in there. All I'm doing is just doing a bit of metal polish around this side here. Clean it up, alright, clean it up and then polish it to a nice deep shine. You do this for the declination axis as well, alright, so you just need a nice finish, but you're not removing too much material, so you just cleaning them up and then buff them to a nice deep shine, and they should be nice and gleaming. So now what we have is our RA axis nice and clean, alright, so that is quite clean, and same as this, same as the gear ring, that's nicely polished. Okay, and please note, take note of these spacers, clean them up, degrease them, okay, right, and remember which spacer goes where. So the next thing we need to do is, like we did before on the NEQ6 mount, is we need to grease the inside of here and in here. Remember, there is no grease on this part here. Okay, this part is where the bolt acts on there. We use the Type 2 bearing and shaft grease, or alternatively you can use this. This is the Baader Teflon white grease, which you can get. I ordered this from Rother Valley Optics at a good price at £9. Now it seems expensive for a small tub like this, which is 10 millilitres. However, I got this grease. It has very good properties at low temperatures, to -25 degrees to +40 degrees. So it's a very heat sensitive grease, and the reason why I've got this grease is that the standard Geo Optic grease has which is the brown grease, has a tendency to break apart as soon as you apply the components. It's okay with the NEQ6 mount. However, with the bushers, it tends to push that grease out, so it starts to lose the lubrication. However, this grease is very sticky, but it's not tacky. So I got this in place to lubricate the bushers on the deck axis, and also the actual aluminium gear rings. Between the shaft and the gear rings, this grease is actually quite good in between those surfaces. So that's what I'm going to use this grease for. And again, it's a tiny little tub, alright, but it gives me plenty of grease to do both axes. Quite an expensive grease, but it is specialised for its purpose for EQ mounts. So there's different variants of this type of grease. However, order the grease online. If you click the description below, you can order this directly from Rother Valley Optics at a very good price. However, there are different types of grease. There are 4 types, so please pick and choose the correct grease for your environment. So if you're in a cold climate, you may need to order a different grease to suit your environment. So this is the grease I'm using now. So if you see in the video, ignore the brown grease, because I did actually replace this with this type of grease. However, the actual gear ring themselves and the worm drive, I still use the Geo Optic green grease. So that's the only difference I made. And again, what we're doing is just coating some grease. Even though we've done a lot of hard work, alright, we're just going to coat some grease all the way around the shaft, like so. Okay, just nice and even film, okay, and just gently just grease that all the way around. Alright, and it's same on this side, on its inside here, okay, like so, inside the ring itself. Then around this side, on this end, not on the tooth end, okay, the tooth end has a different grease, so only on this side. If you catch a little bit of grease here by mistake, just wipe it off, okay, so don't worry about if you get a bit of grease there, just clean it off with a bit of rag. So yeah, spirally all the way around the inside of that. So we grease that end, okay, we put some grease right down the bottom end, right down there. If you can't reach it, put a blob of grease on a screwdriver and just dab it right down there. Okay, that's all you need to do. Then we put a film of grease along one of the spacers, okay, just good coating of that all the way around. Like so. Okay, once you get a good coat there, right, that's pretty good. That's pretty ample, that. So then what we're going to do is clean your hands. We're going to place the washer, place the spacer over the gear ring like so. And then we're going to slide this nice and easy, okay, like so, okay, and just gently squeeze it down. Just work it all the way in, alright, also you need to do, work it in. We're now going to use the green grease and we're going to coat like we did before on the NEQ6, just coat up the teeth all the way around. So that's what we're going to do now. Again, not too much grease, just butter it all the way in, all the way around. As you can see now, just coating this out. You may get some grease that will come over the edge, but don't worry about that. As long as there is a big gap there, okay, because that's where the bolt is acting against. Alright, so once that's clear, so don't mind if you get a bit of grease, it's just overlapped, don't worry about that. So you just butter it all the way around until all the grease is covered. You can just tidy it up. Now with this design, I'm afraid you're going to have to put a bit of grease around this edge here, okay, because that's where the other shim will act against. Unfortunately, you can't put a different grease on there with the grease here, with this grease, because you can't have two types of greases because you'll get cross contamination. So I'm afraid where this is designed, that's the way it's going to have to be. So you put a bit of grease around this spacer and then you just wrap it round like that, like so. Okay, so that's that part. So once that's greased up, just clean up some areas that you managed to get some grease. Just clean it up best you can, and that is the gearing and the shims in place. You get a type 2 grease, alright, and we're just going to coat this bearing all the way around like so, around the inside. Put a nice big film of grease. So with the nice film of grease, we're going to slide in the R8 axis shaft, nice and easy, and just carefully just slide it in like so. Okay, so now work that in. Oh, it's starting to feel good already. Look at that. So that is the shaft in place. So we've got the declination head part. As you can see, I've just cleaned up and polished this inner race. Okay, there's two races. You get one race down there and there's one down there. Again, I just lightly polished it. Okay, only to clean them up. Alright, and it looks really nice. All we do is then we grease these certain areas. So using the type 2 grease, we just put a nice film of grease from the inside here and slightly on the top, and then there's one round the inside here. So this is what we'll do. We just put a nice film of grease. Alright, it's only a film. All the way around, and then you do the same on the inside here. So now we place the declination housing, putting the longer M5 bolts in place. You can actually Loctite these bolts if you wish, but it's not really necessary because this head has a lip, so it locks in place that way. And then you put the other screw on the other side. I mean, you don't have to take this part off, but I think it's a lot easier to remove the whole thing out. So you just tighten these up, just nipped up, alright, bit by bit. You can always tighten up later on. They don't need to be too tight, just nipped up like that. As you can see, that is the declination head surround attached. Already, look at that, wow, it's looking good. Again, just work that grease in there. Then we get our R8 axis flush bearing. Okay, this is the SKF one. Now it's slightly a bit thicker than the standard one by a good 4mm. So I'm a bit concerned that it's a bit oversized, but as you can see, compared to the old one and the new one, it's a lot on the new one. The SKF is quality than the old one. The standard Skywatcher just is not a great component. However, this has got a decent bearing race and the ball bearings are decent. I'm going to repack this thrust bearing with type 2 grease. Right, I'm going to repack it up, lay the race, and it's easy to do. Alright, all we do is just put a film of grease from the inside of these races. Right, and that's what we're going to do. Put a bit of grease around the race, around there, and then we just put a coating of grease all the way around here, like so. Sit that there for the time being. Then coat this race in with a nice film of grease from the inside. Then we just put that together, alright, and just work that grease in like so. Alright, so we now that's the thrust bearing greased up. We now place our bearing at the RA axis like so. Don't worry if you get a bit of grease, alright, you just clean up the grease here around the threads. And then we're going to place our retainer hand tight first, and we're going to screw that in by hand. Again, you can turn the head itself, okay, so you can screw it in better. Alright, just let that work itself in. Then we grab our special tool and we're just going to just tighten it up a bit. Okay, as you can see there, you see that's too tight, so you just need to slacken it off. So like we did before with the NEQ6 mount, we preload it first, and then we slacken it off like so. The idea is to preload it and then slacken it off. So what I have found, and I need to highlight this, now I've noticed that that bearing that I replaced is 4mm thicker in difference between the box standard Skywatcher bearing. So what I'm doing is the trick is, now because this hole is not lined up, as I tighten that up I can't get access to the Allen key. So because really the hole is here, is where you line it up. So what I've done, the trick is to knit these up all the way in. Okay, nip them up till they hit the end of the shaft. Okay, and then once I hit the end of the shaft, just back it off a few turns like so, and then work your way to the next one. Again, back it off to the next one. So what we're doing is we tighten it all the way down and then back it off so we can still rotate this. The saving grace is, I've noticed, is because we can't get access, there is a groove here where you can get your Allen key in place like so. So as we tighten this up using the tool, okay, we tighten it up first. So we tighten it up like so. We back it off, preload it, and then what we do is once we've preloaded it and we backed it off, and what we're going to do is see that gap there. We can get access to our Allen key like so, and then we tighten it. Okay, back it off like so, and then we just tighten it, and you keep doing it around there. So I'm going to tighten up each one bit by bit, turn around, okay, and then tighten up the next one. Okay, so we keep tightening each of these Allen screws. and that's the way to do it. So, as you can see, we've got the retainer tightened up, okay, and now my RA axis is secured. However, I knew this was going to happen, but what's happened here is when I put the setting circle, it doesn't fit flush. So that means I can still put my polar scope inside, but I don't like how it sticks out. And the reasons for this is, if you take a look inside here, this recess here is restricting because of that 4mm extra width from that thrust bearing. I need to machine down 4mm down this part in order to put the setting circle. Now you can use a Dremel with a grinding tool to just grind off a hedge along here, okay, like so, and then you can do it that way. It's not a problem, because if you're not going to use the setting circles anyway, and use the Skywatcher Wi-Fi adapter, you don't use the setting circles. So you can still screw the polar scope like so, but to be honest with you, I do like this setting circle because it does act like a dust seal, so it keeps your bearings intact, away from dust and grime and all that, and the weather. So I'm going to machine down this lip here so that I can fit the setting circle for me to enable me to screw in the polar scope. I mean, you can screw it in like it is there, alright, but then you see where you put your bolt, your clamping screw there, yeah, it's fine, but I don't really like that. So it's up to you. Personally, I'm going to machine that down on the setting circle, grind, obviously you can use a Dremel tool to machine that lip down for you to then be able to put this setting circle in place. So that's the only problem I've got at the moment. Here's my deck axis, and as you can see, the shaft, I've put it all together just to check all the components and the bushers. Now be aware, this is only bushers, there is no bearings on this shaft. So if you've got damaged bushers or shims, then measure them up, okay, and order online. I've provided the links to a company that specialises on making PTFE washers. At the moment, the deck axis is not that bad. However, one thing I notice, and I've noticed now, is if you take a closer look here, I've got some wear lines on the actual gear ring itself. So why my deck axis was rubbing. As you can see there, there's a lot of wear there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean that up with very fine emery cloth, 2000 grit, just to clean this up, and then I'm going to polish it like I did with the RA axis. Again, remember the shims, in which order they go. Again, these PTFE washers, these PTFE shims are in good condition, so I can use these again. However, if they're worn, in other words they're ripped or broken, then order online with the links provided. I have provided the sizes of these shims. These are crucial because this will measure the gap between the actual worm drive and the gear itself. So these are crucial. There is this one I also measured up, okay, there is that, but that's not really as crucial as these shims. And the other two ones are for the setting circles. There is one actually in here, and there's one inside that setting circle. So they're not really crucial, but these are. these are definitely crucial. So make sure you measure the sizes of your shims on your mount, because yours might be different compared to mine. Even though I provided some rough sizes, these are according to my mount, so don't go off by that. So again, use a micrometer or vernier calipers to measure the diameters and the thickness or depth of these shims. Also inspect on this deck axis shaft. Again, there is hardly any wear on there, so they're in good condition. We've also polished up, got rid of some of the burrs, only a tiny amount of materials removed. Alright, using very fine emery cloth, 3000 grit, and then just highly polish with metal polish. So now the gearing is nice and clean, and so all the mated surfaces are good. So now what we do, it's the same detail like we did before with the other gear. First off, we use the Type 2 grease. We just grab our axis and just put a film of grease around the first race, just the first race. Okay, so we put a film of grease around there. Okay, we then, same detail, grease the inside like so, sparingly. Okay, a really good coat of grease, but sparingly all the way around the inside. Okay, all the way in the inside. Again, a bit more grease, like so. Then put the gear wheel to one side, and then place some grease around the other side, like so, just around there. Okay, just a small amount. So now we've coated the inside. Now we need to coat the other grease with Type 2. Now this is a bit tricky, this one, to grease up, but what we do is we flip the gearing over. There should be no grease on this side, and the reasons for that is we're placing this grease over. But before we do that, we need to coat this one with green grease. So we'll coat this first with green grease. The gearing sits on there, so we place the washer over like so. Replace that. Clean your hands before you start handling the gearing that you just cleaned up. We then place the gearing, and then we put a film of grease on top around the edge like so, just only a tiny bit. Then we place the gearing over like so, and just feed it in there. That's it. So that's the gearing in place. Then clean up your hands again, and then get the other shim, and you're going to use the Type 2 grease. Type 2 grease, smear this over like so, and then excess smear around this part, okay, the top part here. Alright, smear it over like so, all the way around the mated area like so. Then you place the shim over like that. So that's how you grease that, and then you put grease around the top shim here. As you see now, we've got that deck axis now greased up. We're just going to check around that shaft, just make sure there's no excessive grease that shouldn't be there, and that is good to go.